which Krishna personally came to deliver. Imagine that. How important this must be that the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself decides that he has to do this task. That tells you how much emphasis there is on this subject matter. I've written this Mahamantra here, firstly to test that the Koki pens are working. Secondly, to see that you can read this. Can you read this?
Yes, sir.
Good, perfect. That's the size I'm trying to write, so everyone can read it. And I don't have the best handwriting. Forgive us also, we're using primitive technology. I know in this day and age we could have fancy boards and so on, which isn't the university, by the way. Touch screens and so on. But Bhagavad Gita, you notice that even for many, many a year, and I have read many Bhagavad Gitas, and after reading them, especially after reading the first page, I would be forced to almost put it down. It felt as if, hey, I can't go on. It's crazy. You can't make head or tail of what's happening. Did any of you feel like that? Yeah, that's true, right? And there's good reason for that, which I only recognized very, very much later in my life. And that is that this sublime knowledge is protected from adulteration by the Supreme Personality himself. He says in Bhagavad Gita, Evam parampara prapti imam raja rishu vidu sa kalena mahata yoga nasta parantapa. That this knowledge is understood in a disciplic succession. It's in a succession of illustrious spiritual masters whose history is traceable all the way back to Krishna himself. In an unbroken chain. This is the only way to transmit pure knowledge. It cannot be said any other way. It descends from the spiritual world. Unlike the knowledge that is gained in this university, the body of knowledge that takes place at every university and every place of learning outside the spiritual realm is an ascending process. People start with some kind of hypothesis. That means they say, hey, I think a relationship may exist between that glass, that bottle of water, and this table. That's how it starts. Start with somebody saying there is something like that. And then they go about devising some kind of experiment. And that experiment is meant to either prove the relationship, or disprove the relationship, or it says it's inconclusive. The hypothesis, the data comes out inconclusive. Right? So that's how it goes. And it goes on and on, building knowledge. And of course, this process relies on very flawed senses. No matter how smart people may be, but their senses are highly flawed. We have imperfect senses. You can see like somebody's making a noise outside, and it's distracting us, but we don't know who's making noise. We don't know what he's doing. I don't know why he's doing it. We can't even see him. And what we're hearing is not really what he's doing. So all these things are part of our imperfections. And on top of that, we have a tendency to cheat. Now you're adding another layer of horrible propensities to this. And we also have a tendency to commit mistakes, even though we may be innocent about it. That is there. We are fallible people. So for all these reasons, Bhagavad Gita has to be understood through Guru Parampara. Otherwise it will remain a mystery, and otherwise it will also not only be daunting, but it keeps you at bay. It keeps you deliberately out of the loop. So it's a sifting process. It's a filtration method. And then on top of that, you have another set of issues, where especially the Western nations, headed by the great British Empire, intentionally went and translated the Vedic scripture in such a way that it would confound you, confuse you, and ensure that you turn away from Sanatana Dharma. That's the design. So it's a way to discredit the process. So that whole thing started from the point where they would destroy gurukuls, then they would burn the scriptures, they would kill all the intelligentsia, all the brahmanas who were learned in this, and then they would rewrite them in English, because now all the Sanskrit scholars are dead. They were killing off the language. And then rewrite it in a way that deliberately confused you. So all these Western translations you've got to be aware of. You've got to watch it. So with those few words of introduction, let's get cracking into our subject matter. I will say a few prayers so it will invoke auspiciousness upon all of us, and it will help us to improve our understanding, and I'm hoping and praying sincerely that every one of you walk out of this room richer for this experience. I know it made an amazing difference to me when I learned this. It was, I've been looking and studying this for decades, and I only picked this up like about 15, 20 years ago. It's not like a long time. I wish I had known it in my early days of Krishna consciousness, because it's transformational, and I hope you'll concur with me at the end of the 45 minutes. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kalamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvaevacha Patitanam Pavinibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Bhagavad Gita has some 700 verses. And if we look at the Bhagavad Gita we have here, it's roughly 1,000 pages. So for most of us, it's not so easy to read that. And on top of it, we have all kinds of other challenges in our lives. We are busy people, we have other priorities that pushes up or demands our time. And often we would prefer to have some assistance. Somebody who could hold our hands and help us through this process. I know I'm one of those. On my own, if I had to study Bhagavad Gita, it looks so distant and so aloof. But when I'm studying it under the guidance of great spiritual masters, it's just magic. It's just magic. So Bhagavad Gita, the Acharyas have divided into 3 sections. The first 6 chapters, the middle 6 chapters, and the last 6. So there are 18 chapters in total. So let's start with the first 6 chapters. Srila Prabhupada often said that if somebody remembered one shloka from Bhagavad Gita, his life will become perfected. His or her, right? When I say his, it also means her. And if they had remembered even one word, that's enough. What to speak of the entire shloka? So today I'm hoping that we'll all remember several words. At a time when we are about to leave our bodies, if we can remember this, our lives will become perfect. Okay? So, the first 6 chapters. Can you read that in the back, Pandit?
Yes.
What it says?
Section 1.
Perfect. Okay, that's my writing is okay. Let you know. Right. So the first 6 chapters, it's all about you. The entire 6 chapters is about so remember that. And it is about how you can attain perfection. So it starts off in chapter 1 that all things I'm going to tell you, and there may be a lot, right, during the course of the discourse. But what I write down here is what the most important things is a take-home message. So if you remember this and take this home, that's enough. We have achieved a lot. So chapter 1 is called Observing the Armies of the Battlefield of Kurukshetra. And although a lot of description goes into chapter 1 about observing the armies, but the philosophical point comes out after Arjuna observes the armies. After observing, then he notices something. And something happens to Arjuna. And that is what? That is, read that from the back. Lamentation, yes. So Arjuna sees all this happening and he goes into the state of lamenting. He becomes perplexed. He becomes confused. Becomes sad. He becomes depressed. Prabhupada says this, uses these words. He starts crying. Because now he's thinking, these people here who have assembled, my relatives, my friends, my family members, people I grew up with, people I revered and respected, they have now taken up arms against me. And many of them are to be considered my elders and seniors. You know, what am I to do? Better to die rather than fight such people. So he's confused now, right? So that's lamentation. The entire chapter is about Arjuna's lamentation. Chapter 2. Please read that, Pandit. You're reading well.
Identity.
Excellent. Right? Identity. This is a crux in life. If we don't know who we are, then everything else becomes crazy after that. At this point in time, today I was on a big discussion with some people about all the gender things that are taking place in the world now, you know. You may have heard about it, gay rights and lesbian and transgender and all these things that are happening. And it's gone crazy. It's all because of a misidentification of who we are. So, Krishna's instruction starts in the second chapter. In the first chapter, Krishna does not give any instruction to Arjuna. And it's only once Arjuna tells Krishna, now I'm confused, Krishna. I don't know what's happening. Please, you guide me. Please, I'm begging you to tell me what is right and what is not. So at that point, Krishna starts. And he starts to instruct the first instruction. And this is considered to be the A of the ABC in spiritual life. And this identity is that we are all spirit soul, part and parcel of the Supreme Spirit, the Supreme Lord Himself. That Spirit is the same in quality as the Lord, but not in quantity. And that Spirit is eternal, as opposed to this body. So this misidentification, we think, oh, I'm male or I'm female, I'm South African or I'm Indian, I'm American, I'm Russian, I speak this is Zulu, I speak Chinese, and therefore identify with some geographical area, so on and so forth. All those things are artificial designations. The real you is not this outer covering of garments. Earlier I was wearing another set of clothes. Now I've got this. Tomorrow I'll wear something else. That's continually changing. Our own bodies are changing all the time. The eye cells, the corneal cells, the other cells, the white of the eye. Do you know that every 24 hours those cells change? Every 24 hours. The red blood corpuscles, every 120 days they're gone, changed completely. So from today, if you count 120 days later, not a single red blood corpuscle is the same in your body. So like that, every single part has got a finite lifespan and it's continually changing. If every single part of you is changing, then who are you? Can I be the heart? Can I be the brain? Can I be the leg? Can I be what? You're none of these things. You are the unchanging part that's within the body. If I had to show you pictures of yourself when you're the little kid and your mommy is changing your napkins, and compare that when you were going to primary school or preschool, and compare that when you was in high school, and when you'll be 80 years old with a walking stick wobbling around, you're still the same person, but everything has changed. Now we have technology through ultrasound, now we can see what's going on in the womb. We can see, two very tiny bits have come together, just like a blob. So you can't be the body. By all consideration, even at death we say, oh, so-and-so has gone, passed away. And the famous line is, passed away peacefully. Poor guy must have been a scoundrelly life, died a horrible death, but yeah, at the eulogy, everybody is glorifying, say, yes, passed away peacefully. Oh, yes, gone to heaven, gone back to everybody. It's a joke. This is not so easy and simple like that. So, identity, this is a crux. That's why I spent a little time on it, right? Chapter 2. And chapter 2 is very long. It's the longest chapter in Bhagavad Gita. It's the longest chapter in terms of quantity, amount. Okay, chapter 3. By the way, chapter 2 is called Contents of the Gita Summarized. So it's the entire Bhagavad Gita summarized in chapter 2. Everything. So if you read chapter 2, you know everything of the whole of Bhagavad Gita. And today, if you listen to this presentation, you know everything of Bhagavad Gita too. So chapter 3 is called, okay, let's tell you what chapter 3 does. In chapter 2, you learn about your identity. In chapter 3, you learn about what you are meant to do. What is your job description in modern parlance? What is your work? What do you mean? Everybody is like searching, what's my purpose in life? Let me find it. Chapter 3 tells you. And chapter 3 is titled Karma Yoga. So the word I would like you to remember is Mataji, please. Yeah. That is, what is your job? In modern language, what is your job? And in text number 9 in chapter 3, Krishna says what job is. Tat Vijnartat. That means, you work for me. Krishna says, work for me. That's your job. In chapter 4, now we have a situation. Now in each section of Bhagavad Gita, I told you there's one word to remember the whole section, which is, What's the word for this section of Bhagavad Gita?
You.
You, right? It's all about you and how you're going to attain perfection. Now there is one analogy I'm going to share with you for each section. And the analogy for section 1 is go for it, Pandit.
Amnesia.
Yes, amnesia, right? Amnesia means that we have lost our memory. And we see it in time, like let's say something very traumatic happens to you. Touch wood, hope it doesn't matter. We're taking a hypothetical case, or something happens to somebody, right? They went through some severe trauma. We see it often that they lose their memory. They get blanked out. They have no recollection of the event. And sometimes you have to use all kinds of techniques to get it out, like regressive hypnotherapy and so on and so forth, right? But this is what happens. So now, the analogy in this section, one analogy, right, for this entire section is you with amnesia, you've forgotten. Firstly, you have forgotten who you are. So Krishna, remember Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita is taking on the role of us, the common conditioned living entities. And here, Arjuna is prompting Krishna to deal with the issues. So Krishna starts by first reminding us who we actually are. So in amnesia, with the loss of memory, step 1 is telling, no, you're my son. You've forgotten I'm your daddy. Beta, what's wrong with you? What happened? So we try to revive the person's memory. So that's the first step. And the second there is to tell them what you're meant to do. You are meant to be a doctor. That's your job. But you've forgotten who you are, and you've forgotten. Once you forgot who you are, then you don't recognize, okay, I'm a doctor. Because you don't know. You just walk the streets like a vagabond. So that's how we are. Brahmanda Brahmiti Kundu Bhagyavan Jiva. We are going through universe upon universe, time after time, wandering aimlessly, trying to find some meaning in life. So chapter 4 now reminds us, Krishna reminds us of our qualifications. In chapter 4 is called transcendental knowledge. So here, the word to remember is knowledge. This knowledge is about your qualifications. This knowledge is about who you are. And it's about the tools that you have in which to do your job. Got it? Knowing your job, but you need certain special tools. These are the tools. The tools in which to do your job, but the knowledge about those tools. That is chapter 4. In chapter 5, once you do all these things, once you know who you are, you know what your job description is, and you have full recollection of all your skills, then there's a result. Something happens. So what's that result? In chapter 5. Now generally in Bhagavad Gita, and it's divided in such a unique way, that generally the last verse in each chapter is the concluding verse, and it's the punchline. So chapter 5, text 29 is the punchline. says what? Jatma mam shantir rakshate, the last line. So, that means peace. So if you do your job, if you know who you are, and in that identity, you do your job with the tools that we provide with you, the result is peace. So now, chapter 2, 3, and 4 is called the ABC in spiritual life. It is like the medicine that Krishna is giving to Arjuna that transformed a person from lamentation and distress and perplexities, confusion, and all these states to becoming peaceful. Chapter 5. It's one of the results, the main result, but there are other results. The main result is you get peace. So, I'm just going to call that the ABC in spiritual life. That is what Prabhupada says. This is the ABC. And so, from lamentation, we get to peacefulness. So now I'm going to reverse the order. When you don't know who you are, when you don't know what you are meant to do, and you don't have knowledge of the tools that you are equipped with from the spiritual world, then the result will be miserable. Now you see why we are suffering? Okay. So now let's get to chapter 6, the final chapter in this first section. Chapter 6 is called Dhyana Yoga. Yoga means to connect with the Supreme Lord Himself. Dhyan means meditation. And Dhyan, meditation more precisely, is a heightened form of thinking. Concentrated, focused thinking. So, chapter 6 is all about Mataji, you should know the drill by now. Think. Right, we all of us think, right? And we all think that we know how to think. Right? Just like how we talk. We all talk a lot. We think we know how to talk. But talking is a reflection of your thinking. So one has to be schooled on how to think. It is not something that goes for granted. Because your thoughts determines your words and your actions. And your actions determines your outcome in life. So if we want to change the result of anything we want, anything, you want to change your relationships with your somebody, you want to change the outcome and you're not good at the moment or you want to make it better, then you have to change what you're doing. And in order to change what you're doing currently, you have to change how you think. If you always do what you have always done, you will always get what you have always got. And like they say, the definition of stupidity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Right? So here, Krishna is defining and teaching us how to think. Dhyana Yoga. Yogi mam api sarvesham madgatanantara atmana. That's a shloka. Chapter 6, last verse. Okay. So now, clear. First 6 chapters. Easy, right? Simple. Krishna is all about you, and at the moment you're in this amnesic state. You've been whacked on your head with a sledgehammer, caught in a hijacking, somebody shot you and beat you up. Not you, sorry, I'm not going to say it like that. But somebody's beaten up, caught, and now you're sitting in ICU and you're barely recovered. Now you come around from the coma and now you are in the state now. Can't remember what happened. Tell me what happened. What happened to me? Why am I here? So this is the whole thing. This is the process. Okay. So whole of section 1 deals with karma yoga. Right? That's all it's about. The whole section is about karma yoga. So now, sorry, all things. Gently. This one.
You have a lot of karma yoga.
Yeah. No. I think my wife will give me beans like I get home with all this stuff. She said you're using indelible markers and expect me to. No, leave it. Okay. So let's go into section 2. Right? Is everybody clear about this? Right? So when you read Bhagavad Gita, just understand that whole section 1 is about you. And it's about you being in this horrible state of amnesia. That's how we are here. We've forgotten. And then Krishna now is teaching us. Krishna is medicating us properly by first revealing, hey, you know what, you've forgotten actually who you really are, but this is who you are. You're a spirit soul. And that's how it goes. And you've forgotten what you're meant to do. You've forgotten that you're a highly skilled physician. You've forgotten it. You're a highly skilled whatever, But you can do it. Krishna gives you the confidence, yes, you can. This is who you are. Don't fear. Just go ahead and do it. And then he tells you you'll become peaceful. Arjuna, you're in a mess now. You're completely disorientated. You're stressed out. Now, how to become peaceful? And finally, now to think properly. How to maintain that state. How to keep yourself thinking right. Okay, section 2. In section 2, it is all about Krishna. The whole section is only about Krishna. So chapter 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, the next 6 chapters, only about Krishna. And it's so easy to figure this out because you just look at the titles of each chapter. Chapter 7 is titled Knowledge of the Absolute. Srila Prabhupada, in the first 2 lines of the introduction to the Srimad Bhagavatam, defines absolute. Absolute, whenever you see the word absolute, it's referring to the Supreme Personality of God. It's referring to God Himself. So whenever he says absolute, in capital letters, that's God. Right? So the title of chapter 7 is Knowledge of the Absolute. Number 8 is Attaining the Supreme. So who is the Supreme? Only God. Chapter 9 is the most confidential knowledge. So confidential knowledge about whom? Krishna. 10 is the opulence of the Absolute. So again, Krishna's opulences. Number 11 is the universal form. Krishna's amazing form. Because only God, and this is how he proves. Krishna is proving to everyone that he is God. At this point, it becomes emphatic that there is no doubt. Because some people still think, because they don't read chapter 11, that is Krishna really God? Or was it some human being in the guise that just come here, prophet, he just come and spoke some nice philosophy and went away? No. Because remember, Arjuna is playing the role of a conditioned living entity like you and me. So, whenever Krishna is speaking in Bhagavad Gita, transpose your name instead of Arjuna. So Krishna starts speaking to you directly. Then you get it. You just take it like that. Okay, so that's level. And number 12 is devotional service. So performing devotion to whom? Who are you devoted to? Again, to Krishna. So the whole section is about Krishna. And the analogy that I would like you to remember in this entire section that will just clarify every point in the section is you are now going for a job interview. And Krishna is personally conducting that interview. Okay, that's the analogy. Mataji, to the honors, what it says? Excellent, thank you. This will keep everyone awake. You are part, you're helping me to keep them focused, thanks. Okay, so then the analogy in the first section was amnesia, the one word, right? So this is the interview now. Second here, the word here, everything is one word. If you remember one word, you remember the whole thing. So now Krishna is conducting the interview. Now when Krishna conducts the interview in chapter 7, Krishna starts to first explain to you who he is. He tells you a lot about himself. This is not boastfulness. He is not bragging. He is just merely informing you. He's telling you a lot about who he is. Right? And that is, the word to remember here is, in modern language, would be boss. At the end of chapter 7, text number 30. And in this way we learn the verses, you know how many shlokas there is in each chapter. So here in text number 30 is 3 words are given, right? Which defines that he is the supreme proprietor, he's the owner of everything. And then he says that he is the enjoyer of everything. Krishna owns everything, Krishna enjoys everything. And everything is ultimately meant only for his pleasure. That's what it's about, right? So when we understand that, then you know he's the boss. He's really the big boss. So that's chapter 11. Chapter 7. And chapter 7 I mentioned earlier is called the knowledge of the absolute. Knowledge of the absolute. In chapter 8, during this interview process now, Krishna is trying to convince you to join his team. Come, work for him. He already told you now, that's your job. But now he's trying to convince you why working for him trumps everything else. Why it's better. And in this, he gives you a perk. He gives you some special bonus. Right? Which, if you work for anybody else, you will not get. So Krishna throws in his trump card. He gives you something special. He says, you know what? If you work for me, you'll get something which you'll get nowhere else. And that is? Money. Say that again? Knowledge. Money. Knowledge. Yeah, good. But what do you can do with the knowledge? Yeah, you've got the knowledge, you've got the science, but what would you do with it?
Practice it.
Yes, because having knowledge is just useless. That's why you see, Mataji, that we have professors of theology, of religion in every university. And these guys are ultra smart guys. They know a lot, they publish papers, they've got a half dozen degrees behind the names. But when you look at their character, their behavior, it is
Different.
unspeakable. They're scumbags, actually. I'm going to give you a real life story. Maybe I shouldn't say it. Okay, I'll say it. Say it, right?
Say it. We giving you permission. Say it.
Okay, but I'll just take out the names. I was at a conference in Johannesburg, a doctor's conference. And this conference, they were discussing ethics. Ethics is a big topic in medicine. So, and the head of the session is a professor of ethics. He started off his talk by saying that he's an atheist. That's his opening line. So after he finished his lecture, I went up to him and I spoke to him. And I remember, I was a nobody. He is a big wig. And I spoke to him, I said, sir, tell me, all this knowledge, where do you get it from? You're speaking about morality and ethics and defining this out. He said, just give me all the stories where the research and all this happening. I didn't know. It's coming, the basis is scripture. The understanding of what is right and what is wrong comes from scripture. That's ethics. So now he knows, because he started that, now he knows where he's going. And then once he's talking to me, he had this, in his satchel, he had a zipper. You know, you get this thing where you have a A4 pad inside, and that got a zipper, and it's in leather bound, right? So he's talking to me, and he's putting all these things back. So he opened that, and when he opened that, some drugs fell out, and he was so embarrassed. This was in a massive auditorium right in front of me, and I'll just say, just see how Krishna exposed this fraud and charlatan right here. And this is true story. It happened with me. Okay, so the perk. The real special bonus that Krishna gives is that he gives you the award that we call real life insurance. Now, when we buy life insurance now, what happens? We take in a policy, we'll pay all our life, but you have to die for something to get paid out. So it's a misnomer. It's meant to say death insurance, but they don't want to tell you death insurance. So they bluff you, it's life insurance. They're not insuring your life, they're insuring your death. But Krishna gives you the real life insurance. He says, you work for me, you'll come to me, and you'll never have to come back to this miserable material world again. Who can give you that? But the Supreme Lord. So that's the real caveat. That's the perk. So that's your bonus. Krishna says, everyone wants to know what my salary package is going to look like. When you go for an interview, sir, tell me how much am I going to earn? What's the bonus? What my take home is. So Krishna says, here's your bonus, child. Is it attractive? Do you feel it? Chapter 9 is called the most confidential knowledge. And then Krishna is continuing to speak. He says, okay, whilst the bonus is there, but he says, for all my employees, I give them my credit card. And my credit card is not like your credit card. Like we get American Express and Platinum, unlimited. No limit on that card. So you can go and buy a Rolls Royce, take the card, they flash the card, okay, Rolls Royce gets a limit. So it's like that kind of card. So Krishna's card, he says, I give you my card. But then you scratch your head and say, hey, Krishna, you give me a card, but the card is useless. If I give you my credit card, you do nothing about it. Right, Paramatma Prabhu? You need the password. Everything is confidential. Our Facebook page, our phones, our bank accounts, we all password protect them. So access to Krishna is password protected. And that protection is, what's the password? Now, obviously, the credit card is useless without the password. So what's the password? It's a 6-letter word. Once you learn the 6 letters, you know Krishna's password. You've got direct access to his credit card. You've got direct access to him. You've got direct access to everything. Password is? Mataji? Close. Close. Very close. Again? Good. Nice. More?
Is it bhakti?
Yes. Who's that?
Me.
Sure. Give me a round of applause, please. You see, he was smart. He was listening because I said it's a 6-letter word. Right? Okay. So it's bhakti. Bhaktiya mam avijananti. Yavana tasmita prala. That Krishna is only known. He only revealed through bhakti. You cannot know Krishna through any other process. All the knowledge in the world is, if it's not with bhakti. Padram pushpam phalam thoyam yomi bhakti apayashati. Krishna says, you offer me anything, but offer it with love. Offer it with devotion. Because there's nothing we can give Krishna. What can you give Krishna? If you've got a billionaire right in front of you somewhere, and you say, okay, I'm going to give you one lollipop. Because everything is like a lollipop to you. 1 cent. Can't give anything that will please him. But if you took the same lollipop and you gave it to his son, his 3-year-old son, although it's still the 1 cent, it would please him knowing, what a nice person gave my son a lollipop. So this is what bhakti is. Bhakti is offering with love and devotion. When we perform bhakti, we get access into the most confidential realms of the spiritual world. And hence, chapter 9 is called the most confidential knowledge. Okay? Now, chapter 10 is the opulences of the Absolute. Now it's a description, it's a brief description. With Krishna's opulences, it's unlimited. So he's only going to highlight the main ones. So here, several are highlighted. But you get 4 verses in chapter 10, which is called the Chatur Shloki Bhagavad Gita. Chatur Shloki. Chatur means 4. Chatur Shloki means 4 shlokas that are the original seed verses of Bhagavad Gita, from which the Bhagavad Gita expands. Right? Remember, Bhagavad Gita is spoken in every universe through every millennia. So Bhagavad Gita is perpetually being repeated in different places. Right now, somewhere Krishna is on the battlefield with Arjuna and speaking. So this knowledge is eternal. This is one of the understandings of what it means to be eternal. So it never dies, it never stops. So, in the Chatur Shloki Bhagavad Gita, which is chapter 10, text number 8, 9, 10, and 11. The first shloka, half of that shloka, is pertaining to Krishna. But the balance, 3.5 verses, is the next word I want you to remember. What is it? Do the honors. Say that again. Bhaktas. Bhaktas means devotees. So of all Krishna's opulences, the one he considered to be the most, this is from Krishna's estimation now, are his devotees. So therefore, honoring, respecting Krishna's devotees is the shortcut to getting Krishna's attention. Giving the lollipop to the billionaire's 3-year-old son has more impact and more benefit than giving the lollipop to the billionaire. So, if we can somehow connect with Krishna's devotees, then our lives will become sublime, for sure. So this is the key. Why? Because bhakti, which is the password in 9, is only in the bhaktas. So if you want access to the password, you can't get it. How do you get bhakti? Where will you get bhakti from? You can imagine it? Forget it. I'll give another story in my life. Once, I treated an old lady, a grandchild, right? And she was not very literate and all that, but a simple lady. And the child got, was very sick, and the child got better. And she came back and saw me about 2 days later, and she brought half a dozen chickens for me. She's obviously, what a beautiful, kind-hearted person. And you just see the gratitude and appreciation in her heart. But I had to politely decline because she didn't take the time to check whether that kind of present would be suitable for me. I'm a vegetarian, so giving me something like that is not so pleasing. But if she thought about it carefully and gave me a bunch of lychees, for example, that would have been a different story. So here's the point. That by pleasing the bhaktas, the devotees of Krishna, then Bhakti Devi, who resides independently in their hearts, can confer her benediction upon you, independent of the devotee. Now this is another science. Now please listen carefully what I said. Bhakti Devi, the personification of Bhakti, the source from which Bhakti emanates, she, independent of the devotee, can confer her benediction upon you. However, she can only go where the devotees go. Bhakti Devi does not travel independent. She's in the heart of the devotee. So this is the secrets of the science. Mataji mentioned earlier the science. This is the secret in the science. And when we get this right, remember chapter 9 is the middle of Bhagavad Gita. The middle 6 chapters are the most important chapters in Bhagavad Gita. And number 9 will be considered to be the peak of the mountains. Mount Everest of the spiritual world. Mandara Mountain or something like that. Right? So this is the peak. So in this peak now, in this section, we're starting to hear the most esoteric truths that comes out. Okay. So in chapter 11, we mentioned it's called universal form, Krishna's universal. So when you're in this job interview now, remember this whole thing, the job interview is continuing. Krishna is telling you all these things. In the job interview, Krishna says, but I'm actually all over. I've got branches all over. When somebody wants to work for Microsoft, they get so proud, I'm in New York, or we've got a branch in Hong Kong. And this company is, it's a multi-trillion-dollar enterprise. So proud of who we are and who we're working for. So Krishna is telling you, I'm throughout the universe. I'm not just in a couple cities, major cities, on one puny planet. I'm throughout, in every planet, in every part, in every universe. We got branches. And he tells you all these different forms. Chapter 12 is devotional service. Whenever you go for a job interview, they give you a manual, or generally, like if you go to sophisticated companies, they give you a manual, and in the manual, they tell you how we measure your performance. It's called KPI, Key Performance Indicators, KPI, right? So when you do what they tell you to do, and you do it well, then you become a valued employee of the company. So chapter 12 is about the KPI. So we say, Krishna Prem Indicators. Okay, so we finish the next 6 chapters. So should we stop here now? Or should I rush through the last 6? Okay, we'll do the last 6 quickly, right? So this is the section 2. This is a Krishna Prem Indicator. This is what makes you dear to Krishna, more dear to Krishna, and most dear to Krishna. That's what the shlokas, the last 3 verses, last few verses in the chapter explains this. So you know how to endear yourself. Krishna is giving the process how you endear yourself to him. Section 3, the last 3. Section 2 covers bhakti, bhakti yoga. Section 3 covers jnana yoga. Section 3, last 6 chapters are. So from 13 to 18, right, is the section 3. The analogy I want you to remember in section 3, section 2, the analogy was job interview. Section 3, the analogy is that you're in prison. Krishna awarded you job. You're very successful. You did well in the interview. Right? You passed. Krishna awarded you job. But now one unfortunate thing is that you're in prison. So the word to remember in section 3 is we're in the material world. And the analogy is prison. You're in the prison. So when you're in the prison now, you need to get out at some point. We're prisoners. We're trapped in this material world. So how do we get out? So chapter 13 gives you insight that Krishna is your lawyer. Krishna is your witness, and he will stand for you and represent you. He is willing to take on your case. Because without a lawyer, it's tough to get out of jail. Very tough. So Krishna is your advocate, he's the lawyer. Chapter 14 is called the 3 modes of material nature. And these 3 modes represent the bars of the prison. So in order to get out of prison, if you have the tools to dismantle the bars, you can get out. And the bars are the 3 modes: mode of ignorance, mode of goodness, mode of passion. Those 3 bars, right? The bars are made of subtle substances. Our normal prisons are massive, steel bars and so on. But here these are subtle substances which binds the living entity in this material world, which is managed by Mother Durga. So those are the bars. And in chapter 15, we get the details of what this prison looks like. What is this prison all about? So when you got the map of the prison, then you can plan your escape route. Anybody saw the Dirty Dozen movie here? Maybe you have to be my age to appreciate it. Okay, it's like they get different.
That's right.
So you get trapped in the prison and you get thrown into a German prison. And here, the Americans and the British generals, they plot how they escape, and they do escape eventually. And one of the ways they do it by taking tunnels and so on. But they have to first figure out what's the arrangement and how the prison is designed. And then they started taking tunnels. So you need a map. This is the map. The map is chapter 15, text 15. Vedaishta sarver aham eva vedya. Krishna says, by all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of all the Vedas. I am the author. I know everything. So, the map of how to escape is given by Krishna. The escape route is the Vedas. Chapter 16 talks about the different kinds of people that live in the prison. The divine and the demoniac natures. That's the title of chapter 16. So these are the inmates. So here, you are warned or you are informed that beware who you associate with in prison. Because if you take up the wrong association, instead of getting out of prison, your stay may be prolonged. You may end up committing more problems, getting into more trouble, and then you stay longer. And then, if you choose wisely, you can rehabilitate yourself quickly and get out. So you've got different kinds of people in prison. Okay, those are the inmates. And in chapter 17, Krishna gives you the key of how to get out. So, the key is given in the last 3 verses, where the same mantra is repeated. Om Tat Sat. There's a mantra in the last 3 verses. Very few things are repeated in Bhagavad Gita. And for something to be repeated 3 times, while Krishna is on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, in the midst of a war that's about to take place, the biggest world war in history, you know that Krishna is going to be very efficient in the use of his words. But repeating 3 times needs a lot of emphasis. Om Tat Sat. That everything rests with Krishna, ultimately. Everything is in Krishna. So that's the key. And when we understand the key, then you don't need to break the bars. You don't need to dig a tunnel. Just open it. You got the key. Open it out. And finally, chapter 18, Prabhupada writes in the purport of the first verse of chapter 18 that Bhagavad Gita is complete in 17 verses. So everything is done. So chapter 18 is again a summary of everything. So here, Krishna is saying that, I've given you everything, but you don't know how to access a lawyer. Lawyer is coming free, but you don't know how to access him. Then he says, I've given you the tools in which to dismantle the bars of the prison, but you are challenged. You don't know how to use the equipment. Sophisticated equipment, right? You're going to have some skill how to do it. Like, managing all the sound and so on. Not everybody can do that. You need a little bit of skill and expertise. And then, I give you the map, but many of us don't know which side is north in the map. We take the map and we think, oh my God, what? Go this way? What is this? I know what's cutting. Got no clue what's going on. And then the inmates, hey man, everybody looks terrible in this place. I can't trust anyone. This guy looks good, but he's got a knife behind his back, and that one is a smell. So I can't figure out, I'm lost. And then you got the key in your hand, but I'm suffering with Parkinson's disease. So, my eyesight is very bad. my coordination is bad, so I can't even find the hole where to put the key in. Can't put the key inside. You got the key in your hand, but you can't put it inside. So Krishna says, Vichara, you are just a lost case. There's nothing. I gave you everything, but I gave you all the solutions to your life, but you got no ways you can get. Right? So Krishna says, okay, for you, just surrender to me. Just surrender. Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam saranam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshai shravani mahasucha 1866. So just surrender. Now, what is surrender? I don't think anybody needs to tell South African audiences what it means to surrender. Yes? Somebody walks in here with AK-47. What do we do? Yes. You say, please, there's my cell phone here. By the way, my car keys is there. You can take my gold watch, it's also there. Just leave me alone. You don't, no resistance. And you make sure that, you're not a threat. Just put your hands up. I surrender, I give up. So that's all Krishna is saying. Just do that. Offer yourself to Krishna. Just merely by doing that, and that's a conclusion in Bhagavad Gita. Concluding statement. You offer yourself to Krishna. Pay your respects to him. Offer your praise to him. Worship him. That's it. And as Mataji was saying earlier, chant for Krishna's name. So we make the full circle. We end from where we started. It's both the process, the solution, and the sadhya. That means the ultimate destination. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This whistle-stop tour of the entire Bhagavad Gita in a few minutes, of course it's a massive challenge to be able to do. And I hope, we can never completely do justice. But it is like how, when you take a complex subject matter, you look at it from above, like a helicopter view. And then gradually we focus deeper and deeper into subject matter. We zoom in. So this is looking at it from high level, from high up. And that's what you see. And it's always good to have that perspective. Because if somebody is discussing some topic from, say, section 1, immediately it's about you and how you can achieve perfection. The analogy that, I've been whacked, I'm suffering with amnesia. And then you say, he's talking about chapter 3. Chapter 3 is what? About what? Chapter 3 is about my job, what I'm meant to do. So the whole chapter is all discussion about what you're meant to do. And so like this, when you have this perspective on Bhagavad Gita, everything will fall into perfect sense.